The phone rang, a jarring sound in the quiet afternoon. It was my son, Brett, his voice tight with an urgency that sent a chill down my spine. "Dad, is Rachel home right now?" I frowned, setting down the quarterly statements I'd been reviewing. Morning light filtered through the windows of our Pinehurst home, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. "What's going on?" A pause, then the faint hum of an aircraft cabin, muffled voices, the click of overhead bins. "I'm in the cockpit at gate C7. My flight to Maui is boarding." His voice dropped, barely a whisper. During pre-flight checks, I looked through the flight deck window and saw someone in seat 3A who looks exactly like Rachel. Business class, she's with a man I don't recognize. They're holding hands. My pulse shifted, a cold dread beginning to spread. "You're certain?" "I'm trained to notice details, Dad. Burgundy sweater, the floral scarf I bought her last month. She's wearing your pearl earrings, the ones you gave her at our wedding." I stood slowly, my mind racing. Where did she say she was this week? "Denver. Extended nonprofit board meeting. She left 2 weeks ago." He took a shaky breath. "But if that's her in 3A, on my plane to Maui, then everything she told me was a lie. Can you take a photo?" "Already did. I'm sending it." "Dad, if that's really her, who did I say goodbye to this morning when I called home?" My phone vibrated. The image loaded, grainy, but clear enough. Seat 3A, a woman in a burgundy sweater, a floral silk scarf, pearl earrings catching the cabin light, 3 pearls set in gold. A man sat beside her in 3B, mid-40s, navy suit. His hand rested casually on her knee. Their heads leaned close. The woman's profile, Rachel's face, Rachel's smile. "Do you see it?" Brett asked, his voice raw. "I see it," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "That's her. The scarf, the earrings. If she's boarding your flight right now, then who's in our house?" "Give me 1 minute," I told him. I walked into the living room. Sunlight streamed across the hardwood floor. A yoga mat was spread out. Rachel was in downward dog, breathing steady. I'd watched that routine every morning for 5 years. She glanced up. "Dad, everything okay?" The word felt natural. Since the wedding 3 years ago, she'd slipped into our family with ease, filling the quiet my late wife, Eleanor, had left behind. "Brett called," I said evenly. "Wanted to make sure you were home." She lowered into a seated stretch. "That's sweet. Tell him I'm fine. My phone's in the kitchen on silent. You know I don't like distractions." I studied her face. The freckle near her left temple. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear. Everything matched. Back in my office, I called Brett. "She's here, doing yoga. Says her phone's on silent." Silence. "Dad, did you see the photo?" I did. I can still see her through the cockpit window. She just laughed at something. He's got his hand on her arm now. "If that's Rachel on my plane, then who's in our house?" My chest tightened. "You said she left for Denver 2 weeks ago." "Yes, Wednesday morning." I opened our home security system. "Let me check something." I scrolled back. This morning, Rachel on her mat. Yesterday, making breakfast. The day before, reading on the couch. 2 weeks ago, timestamp 6:47 a.m. The front door opened. Rachel stepped out with a rolling suitcase, a blue wool coat. She locked the door and walked to a black SUV idling at the curb. It pulled away. I kept the footage running. 7:05 a.m. 18 minutes later, the front door opened again. A woman entered. Same height, same build, same hair color. But she wore a gray cardigan instead of a blue coat. No suitcase. She moved slowly through the house, looking around carefully, studying. She opened cabinets, checked the refrigerator, ran her hand along the granite countertop as if memorizing texture. She selected a coffee mug, the chipped one Rachel refused to throw away. This woman knew which mug to use. "Brett," I said steadily, "when you land, observe her from a distance. Don't approach. Don't let her know you're watching. See where she goes, who she meets. Then call me." "You think it's really Rachel? That my wife is on my plane with another man?" I stared at the split-screen footage. On the left, Rachel leaving. On the right, someone else arriving. "I think we need more information." "What kind?" "The kind that explains how your wife can be in 2 places at once." After he hung up, The house felt unnervingly quiet. Through the wall, I heard movement. Water running, cabinets closing. The ordinary sounds of someone who knew exactly where everything belonged. The woman who looked like Rachel, sounded like Rachel, knew which burner heated most evenly, and where we kept spare light bulbs. The woman who had been living in my house for 2 weeks. I opened my laptop and began pulling financial records. If someone was impersonating my daughter-in-law, there would be traces, subtle inconsistencies, patterns. Numbers don't lie. 3 hours later, my phone buzzed. Followed them from baggage claim. Brett texted, "Black sedan to Fairmont Orchid. Watched from lobby." They checked in together. Same room. "Dad, what's happening?" I looked toward my office door. Beyond it, the woman who wasn't Rachel hummed softly in the kitchen. I typed slowly, "Come home as soon as you can. Don't confront her. Not yet." His reply came instantly. "Who is that woman in our house?" I stared at the frozen security footage. 2 women, one leaving, one arriving, 18 minutes apart. My fingers hovered over the keyboard before I typed the only honest answer I had. "I don't know, but I'm going to find out." The next morning arrived with the kind of clarity that comes after a sleepless night. I'd spent hours staring at financial spreadsheets, trying to make sense of the impossible. By dawn, I'd made a decision. Confrontation would come eventually, but first, I needed certainty. In my 20 years advising clients on fraud cases, I'd learned that assumption gets you nowhere. Evidence is everything. I found her in the kitchen around 8 a.m., making breakfast. She moved with easy confidence, reaching for the coffee filters without hesitation, knowing exactly which cabinet held the good mugs. She'd mastered the choreography of our household perfectly. I poured myself coffee, watching her slice fruit. The morning light caught her profile, and for a moment the resemblance was so complete, it made my chest ache. Except it wasn't Rachel. I knew that now with cold certainty. I kept my voice casual. "Brett and Rachel's anniversary is coming up soon. Remember that dinner you two had in Portland? He mentioned wanting to go back to that restaurant." She paused, knife poised over a strawberry. "Oh yes, that was lovely." The clam chowder was divine. Her smile was perfect, but there was a flicker in her eyes. A micro-expression I almost missed. Portland. Brett had told me they'd celebrated their first anniversary in San Francisco. "Indeed," I said, taking a sip of coffee. "And the wine? A Cabernet, if I recall?" She laughed, a light, airy sound. "You know, Brett, always a Cabernet man, but I preferred the Pinot Noir that evening." Another subtle inconsistency. Brett was a staunch Cabernet fan, but Rachel always went for the Merlot. Pinot Noir was a new preference. "Well, I'm glad you both enjoyed it," I said, my voice unwavering. "I'm thinking of surprising them with a trip back there for their anniversary. Perhaps I could get the name of that specific Pinot Noir you liked?" Her smile tightened, just a fraction. "Oh, Dad, you're too sweet, but I think Brett would prefer a surprise of his own. Don't worry about us." She turned back to the fruit, her movements a little too deliberate. The mask was slipping. I knew it, and I suspected she knew I knew. Later that day, I received a call from Margaret Stone, a senior investigator with the Financial Crimes Division. I'd worked with her on several complex cases over the years. "Camden, I have something that might interest you," she said, her voice crisp and professional. "A pattern of high-value fraud cases involving a man named Adrian Cross. He targets wealthy individuals, often using a female accomplice to gain trust. The MO is always the same: a long-term con, building a relationship, then draining accounts." "And the accomplice?" I asked, my heart pounding. "Always a woman who closely resembles the victim's spouse or partner. They call her the chameleon. She's a master of impersonation." "Margaret," I said, my voice tight, "I think the chameleon is living in my house." I laid out everything: Brett's call, the photo, the security footage, the discrepancies in Rachel's stories. Margaret listened patiently, her silence more unnerving than any interruption. "This is serious, Camden," she finally said. "We need to move carefully. Do you have any idea who the real Rachel might be involved with?" "I have a name," I said, remembering the man in the photo with Rachel. "Harold Whitmore, Florida, $800,000. I had found his name in Adrian Cross's financial records, a large sum transferred from his accounts. Harold Whitmore, Margaret repeated, a note of recognition in her voice. He was a client of ours. Lost everything to a similar scheme a few years back. His wife had recently passed, and he was vulnerable. We suspected foul play, but couldn't prove it. He's our key, I said. If we can get him to testify, it could break this wide open. The next day, Brett returned from Maui. He looked haggard, his eyes hollow. Dad, I don't understand. How can she be here and there? She's not here, son, I said gently. The woman in our house is not Rachel. He stared at me, then at the living room, where the imposter was now watering plants. Who is she? We're going to find out. But first, we need to gather more evidence. I've contacted Margaret Stone. She's bringing in Harold Whitmore. The trap was set. That evening, I confronted the imposter. She was in the kitchen, humming a tune I recognized from Rachel's playlist. Nina, I said, using the name Margaret had uncovered. It's time we talked. She froze, her hands still on the counter. Slowly, she turned. The smile was gone, replaced by a wary glint in her eyes. I don't know what you're talking about, Dad. Don't call me Dad. I know everything, Nina. That your sister has been living here for the past 2 weeks, impersonating you. The room went silent. She stared at me, her jaw tight. Then she laughed. It was a short, forced sound, almost disbelieving. Dad, I don't know what Nina told you, but I know everything, Rachel. Her smile disappeared entirely. She took a step forward, her hands raised in a placating gesture. Tears began to well in her eyes. Dad, please, she said, her voice breaking. I can explain. Adrian was helping me investigate something. I didn't want to worry you or Brett, so My voice cut through the air like a blade. Harold Whitmore, Florida, $800,000. Should I continue? The tears vanished. Her face went cold, hard, empty. The mask was gone. You can't prove anything, she said quietly. I held her gaze. I don't have to. Harold will. Her jaw clenched. She was calculating now, searching for a way out. Then the front door opened again. Brett walked in. Rachel spun around, and for a moment, I saw relief flash across her face. She stepped toward him, her expression softening, her hand reaching out. Brett, she said, her voice trembling. Thank God your father's lost his mind. He thinks Brett didn't move. His face was stone. I saw you, he said. Rachel stopped. What? In Hawaii. With him. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Brett's voice was low, cold, controlled. I was your pilot, Rachel. I saw you holding his hand, kissing him in the hotel lobby. Rachel's face drained of color. She took a step back, shaking her head. Brett, no, you don't understand. Don't, Brett said, his voice breaking slightly. Don't lie to me anymore. She opened her mouth again, but before she could speak, the front door swung open one more time. Adrian Cross walked in. He was tall, confident, dressed in a dark blazer and jeans. He looked around the room with a casual arrogance, as if he owned the place. His eyes landed on me, and he smiled. Mr. Pierce, he said smoothly, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I didn't respond. I just stared at him. Adrian glanced at Rachel, then at Nina, then back to me. His smile didn't waver. Rachel and I have been working together on a financial consulting project, he said. If there's been any confusion about our relationship, I apologize, but I assure you everything has been perfectly professional. I took a step forward. Is that what you told Harold Whitmore? Adrian's smile flickered. Just for a second. I don't know who that is, he said. Liar. The voice came from behind him. Adrian turned. Margaret Stone stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 police officers in uniform. Her expression was calm, but her eyes were sharp as steel. Adrian Cross, she said, her voice clear and measured. You're being summoned for questioning in multiple fraud investigations. Officers, please escort him. Adrian's face went rigid. He glanced at Rachel, then at the officers, then back at Margaret. I'm not going anywhere without a lawyer, he said. That's your right, Margaret replied. But you're going. The officers stepped forward. Adrian's arrogance cracked just slightly. He shot Rachel a look, but she didn't meet his eyes. She was staring at the floor, her hands trembling. Then another figure stepped through the doorway. Harold Whitmore. He was smaller than I remembered, bent slightly with age, but his eyes were sharp and unwavering. He walked slowly into the room, his cane tapping softly against the hardwood floor. Rachel's head snapped up. Her face went white. "No," she whispered. "You can't be here." Harold stopped a few feet away from her. He looked at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "I was broken," he said quietly. "You did that to me. You took my wife's memory and turned it into a con. You made me feel like I had something to live for. And then you stole everything." Rachel's mouth opened, but no words came out. Harold's voice was steady now, stronger. "But this man gave me something back." He looked at me. "Justice." Rachel's knees buckled slightly. She caught herself on the arm of the couch, her breath coming in shallow gasps. Adrian was handcuffed now, being led toward the door. He glanced back at Rachel one last time, his face twisted in fury. "You said this was foolproof," he hissed. Rachel didn't respond. She just stood there staring at Harold, her face hollow and pale. Margaret stepped forward, her voice calm and final. "Rachel Pierce, you're being detained for questioning in connection with multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent." Rachel's eyes darted to Brett, to me, to Nina. Then slowly she sank onto the couch and buried her face in her hands. Margaret set her briefcase on the coffee table and opened it with a soft click. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Rachel sat on the couch, her hands clenched in her lap. Nina stood near the window, trembling. Brett leaned against the doorframe, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. Adrian stood near the entryway, flanked by the two officers. Margaret pulled out a thick folder and set it on the table. She looked at Rachel, her expression calm and professional. "Let's go through this systematically," she said. She opened the folder and pulled out the first set of documents: receipts, hotel invoices, credit card statements. "Evidence 1, Margaret said. "Charges made in Hawaii over the past 2 weeks. Fairmont Orchid Resort, $2,847. Tiffany and Company, $1,250. Roy's Restaurant in Waikiki, $384. All charged to a joint account shared with Brett Pierce." Rachel lifted her chin slightly. "That's not illegal. I went on a vacation." I spoke quietly from where I stood near the fireplace. "A vacation you told your husband was a non-profit board meeting in Denver. A vacation you took with another man, while your sister impersonated you in our home." Nina, still trembling, found her voice. "She promised me a new life, a way out of debt. She said it was harmless, that no one would get hurt." Margaret nodded. "Nina Cross has provided a full confession detailing the extent of the impersonation and the financial fraud. She's cooperating fully with the investigation." Rachel's eyes narrowed, a flash of pure hatred directed at her sister. "You betrayed me. You betrayed everyone," Brett said, his voice cold. "You stole from my father, from Harold, from me. You made a mockery of our marriage." The evidence mounted. Margaret systematically laid out the paper trail: forged documents, shell corporations, meticulously planned withdrawals from various accounts, all leading back to Rachel and Adrian. The Portland dinner, the fake board meetings, the carefully constructed lies. It was a masterpiece of deception, built on a foundation of greed and a complete disregard for human trust. The legal process was long and arduous. Adrian, with his arrogance, initially refused to cooperate, but the overwhelming evidence, coupled with Nina's testimony and Harold's heartbreaking account, left him with no escape. He eventually pleaded guilty to multiple counts of fraud and conspiracy. His sentence was severe: 25 years in federal prison, effectively constituting life without possibility of parole. His face finally changed. Reality had arrived. As the marshals led him away, he hissed, "You haven't won." Brett's voice was quiet but firm. "We have." Outside the courthouse, beneath blooming cherry trees, our small circle gathered. Thomas, my old friend and colleague, who had helped me with the initial financial forensics, asked, "What do we do now?" I looked at each of them. We live, we trust again. Carefully, we honor those we've lost by not letting this define us. A month later, Nina came to visit. Her hands trembled as she spoke. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I helped her. I lied to both of you. Brett's voice was measured. You also told the truth when it mattered most. You helped convict them. Rachel's sentencing happened separately. We watched via video. She stood in her orange jumpsuit, makeup-free, looking older. The judge's voice was firm. Rachel Pierce, through your plea agreement, you've been shown leniency. But 12 years in federal prison is not a light sentence. You will serve every day. 6 months later, 15 months total since discovery, I visited Brett's new apartment. He'd moved out of the house Rachel had lived in. I'm taking a management position, he said while cooking dinner. Training new pilots. He hesitated. I've been seeing someone. Claire. She's a nurse. We met at a coffee shop. Tell me about her. She's kind. Genuine. Nothing serious yet. For now, I'm just enjoying something uncomplicated. He looked at me. Dad, thank you for seeing what I couldn't. For protecting me. That's what fathers do. Always. At home, I spoke to Eleanor's photo. We made it through. Brett's okay. I'm okay. Not easy, but we survived. My phone buzzed. Harold, thank you again, my friend. Tomorrow I visit Margaret's grave with fresh flowers. Another message from Thomas. Victim support group meeting next week. Hope you'll join. I typed, I'll be there. Standing at the window, I thought about cycles and seasons. Rachel and Adrian took so much. Time, money, trust. But they didn't take everything. They didn't take our resilience, our ability to rebuild, our capacity to hope. We're stronger in the broken places, different than before, changed but stronger. The next morning, there was a knock at the door. Brett stood there with Claire. Surprise breakfast, Brett said. Claire wanted to meet you. Claire smiled. Warm, genuine. I've heard so much about you, Mr. Pierce. I watched her for a moment, old instincts rising. Then I chose to let them go. Please call me Camden. Come in. I'll make more coffee. They stepped inside. Laughter, conversation, normalcy. The door closed behind them. Life continuing. Not perfect, not unmarked, but real. And that was enough. To everyone who's journeyed with me from that first impossible phone call to this moment of healing, here's what nearly losing my son taught me about protection and survival. This family story became my awakening. God placed me exactly where I needed to be. Widowed, experienced in fraud investigation, and desperate enough to see what others missed. He didn't spare me from pain, but he equipped me to fight through it. My dad revenge wasn't vengeance. It was a father's refusal to let evil win. When Rachel and Adrian targeted Brett, they miscalculated one thing. A parent's love is stronger than any conspiracy. But here's my warning. Don't be like me. Don't wait until your child is 48 hours from catastrophe to act. I ignored subtle signs for months because I wanted Brett to be happy. That hesitation nearly cost him everything. Trust your instincts before crisis forces your hand. Verify the people closest to you, even when it feels uncomfortable. Dad revenge stories like mine shouldn't have to exist. Prevention is always better than intervention. Every family story carries lessons. Mine screams, this vigilance isn't paranoia, it's responsibility. The dad revenge I had to pursue, freezing accounts, gathering evidence, exposing conspirators, exhausted me. But protecting Brett, worth every sleepless night. Examine your own family story today. Are there inconsistencies you're rationalizing? Relationships that feel slightly off? Don't dismiss those whispers of doubt. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who needs this message. Hit subscribe for more stories that challenge and educate. Comment below. What would you do to protect your family? Thank you for staying until the very end. Your time means everything. A reminder, this account includes fictionalized elements designed for educational value. If this material isn't right for you, please explore our other content that better suits your interests. Stay watchful, stay strong, and never apologize for protecting those you love.